You ever hear a story so outrageous you have to double-check if it's real? Well, imagine this. You've just finished a long day at work. You stop at the store, grab a couple of grocery bags, and you're finally headed home. All you want is to sit down, maybe cook dinner, and relax. But before you can even get through your own front door, a neighbor's kid blocks your path and demands your groceries. When you refuse, his mother storms outside. Within minutes, she's screaming, pointing, and calling the police. And here's the kicker. The man she called the cops on, he wasn't just any neighbor. He was the commander of the local police department. That's right. This is the story of how an HOA, Karen and her entitled son tried to bully the wrong man and ended up embarrassing themselves in front of the entire neighborhood. Let's get into it. This wasn't some chaotic city block or rundown apartment complex. No, this was one of those perfect suburban neighborhoods. Manicured lawns, two-car garages, SUVs in every driveway. It was the kind of place where the HOA acted more like a royal court than a community group. You had rules for everything. What color your mailbox could be painted, how tall your grass could grow, even what curtains you could have if they faced the street. And if there was one person who loved those rules a little too much, it was Karen. Everybody knew her. The self-appointed sheriff of the neighborhood. She walked around like she owned the place, barking at neighbors about trash cans, barking at kids about skateboards, and of course, bragging at every HOA meeting about how she kept standards high. Her teenage son, Jason, was a carbon copy of her personality, loud, spoiled, and convinced the whole world owed him something. He was the type who thought saying please was optional and thank you was beneath him. And then there was Marcus Johnson. Marcus was a tall man in his late 40s. He carried himself with quiet, confidence, the kind that doesn't need to be loud, because it speaks for itself. To the people who knew him, he was polite, helpful, and private. He wasn't one to gossip at HOA meetings or cause drama. He worked long hours and mostly kept to himself. But what most people didn't realize, and what Karen was about to learn the hard way, was that Marcus was the police commander in the city just 15 minutes away. He'd spent years on the force, working his way up, handling everything from violent arrests to delicate negotiations. He'd stared down dangerous criminals and kept his cool under pressure. Compared to that, suburban HOA drama wasn't exactly something that kept him awake at night. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus pulled into his driveway after a long shift. He had 2 heavy bags of groceries balanced in his hands. Milk, bread, vegetables, snacks. The basics. As he walked toward his front door, Jason came swaggering across the street. "Hey!" Jason called out, his voice dripping with entitlement. "Give me those chips and sodas." Marcus stopped and looked at him, eyebrows raised. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Jason said, stepping closer. "Hand them over. My friends are waiting, and I don't feel like walking to the store." Marcus blinked, almost laughing at the audacity. "These are my groceries. Go home." Jason frowned, like he couldn't believe anyone would deny him. "What's your problem, man? Just give me the snacks. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Marcus set his bags down slowly, his patience wearing thin. "Son, I don't know what kind of house you live in, but in mine, we don't take things from people. Now step aside." Jason's face turned red. "You can't talk to me like that." And that's when the front door across the street flew open. Out stormed Karen, her voice carrying like a siren. "What did you just say to my son?" Marcus sighed. Of course. Karen stomped over, pointing an accusing finger. "You don't raise your voice at my child. Who do you think you are?" Marcus kept his voice calm. "Ma'am, your son tried to take my groceries." "I told him no." Karen gasped, as if he'd confessed to a crime. "Oh, I see how it is. You think you can talk down to us? You think you can move into this neighborhood and disrespect my family?" Marcus tilted his head. "With respect, ma'am, your son demanded I give him my food. That's not how neighbors treat each other." But Karen wasn't listening. Her voice grew louder. "Don't you lecture me. If my son asks for something, you should give it to him. That's how we do things around here." Marcus let out a dry chuckle. "No, that's how you do things, not me." And with that, Karen's face twisted into outrage. She whipped out her phone and announced, "That's it. I'm calling the cops. People like you don't belong here, and I'm going to make sure they drag you out." Jason smirked behind her, arms crossed. He clearly thought this was about to go his way. Karen dialed 911, her voice full of false panic. "Yes, officer? There's a suspicious man outside our house. He's threatening my son and refusing to leave. Please come quickly. I think he's dangerous. Marcus stood there silently, arms folded, watching her spin a complete fantasy. He didn't even try to stop her. In his head, he thought, she really has no idea who she's messing with. A few minutes later, the distant wail of sirens echoed through the neighborhood. Curtains shifted as neighbors peeked through their windows. The sound grew louder until a squad car pulled up, lights flashing. 2 uniformed officers stepped out, hands near their belts, eyes scanning the situation. Karen ran to them, practically shrieking. "That's him!" "That's the man. Arrest him right now before he hurts my son." The officers looked from Karen to Marcus. Recognition flashed across their faces. One of them cleared his throat awkwardly. Ma'am, that's Commander Johnson." Karen froze. "What?" The other officer nodded. "He's our boss. He runs the precinct." Jason's smirk vanished. His arms dropped to his sides. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Marcus finally stepped forward, calm as ever. "Officers, thank you for responding. But as you can see, there's no emergency here. This woman and her son tried to take my groceries. When I refused, she made a false 911 call." The first officer's expression hardened. He turned to Karen. "Ma'am, making a false emergency call is a serious offense. You wasted police resources and lied about a crime. Do you understand how serious that is?" Karen stammered. I didn't know he was—" Marcus cut her off. "It doesn't matter who I am. You don't treat people this way. What you did was reckless and dangerous." Jason muttered under his breath. "This is stupid." But one sharp look from Marcus shut him up. The officers wrote up a report right there on the spot. Karen tried to backpedal, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but her excuses fell flat. By now, nearly half the neighborhood had gathered at their windows or lawns, watching the drama unfold. Some even had their phones out recording. Marcus picked up his grocery bags and turned to Karen. "Next time you or your son think about pulling a stunt like this, remember today, you don't know who people are, and you don't get to bully them just because you think you can." Karen's face burned red. Jason kicked at the pavement, too embarrassed to look up. Within hours, the story had spread. By the next HOA meeting, everyone was talking about it. People laughed about how the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood got humbled in front of the entire block. Karen never apologized, not once. But her power in the neighborhood was gone. People stopped taking her seriously. Instead of seeing her as an authority figure, they saw her as the woman who called the cops on the police, commander over a bag of groceries. Jason, on the other hand, seemed to finally learn a lesson. He stopped demanding things from people. He walked with his head lower, avoided eye contact, and for once in his life kept quiet. As for Marcus, he went back to living the same way he always had. Quietly, respectfully, and with dignity. He hadn't wanted trouble, but when it came knocking, he handled it the same way he always did, with calm strength and unshakable composure. So in the end, what's the takeaway? Maybe it's this: entitlement only gets you so far. You can try to bully, lie, and manipulate, but sooner or later, you'll meet someone who won't budge. Karen thought she could weaponize the police against a neighbor she didn't like. She didn't realize she was calling them on the man who commanded them. And now, well, let's just say her reputation will never recover. So what do you think? Did Marcus handle it perfectly, or should Karen have faced even harsher consequences?